Brady Varman here with Dak Baseball, and today we're going to be talking about the last part of the chain in throwing. So really, kind of the shoulder complex and what needs to happen there in order to efficiently finish all the energy that we've built up previously in the throw. This is one of the most, or the most one of the most difficult aspects that throwers seem to struggle with. So I think it's vital that we cover this portion. But before we get into it, or to start us off, we're going to go through exactly what I mean by what we're trying to get here with the shoulder complex. So, Vetter is a very high level javelin thrower, and he demonstrates this concept very well. So, we can see that a lot of times when athletes are throwing these heavy balls here, we're going to see this elbow leak in front, and they just push the med ball. Vetter does a very good job of keeping his arm lagging back behind. Like if you compare it to where his ear is or where his head is, his elbow, his arm is going to be lagging behind, putting his pec on stretch, putting his lat on stretch, so that he can whip this ball with his larger musculature, right, versus pushing forward with the elbow and really just using tricep to get it there. So at this point here, again, we can see this his whole front side here is on stretch, which is then going to allow him to release that and really just kind of reflexively use those bigger muscles to throw the ball into the wall. So Vetter is a good example, kind of isolated. If you look at this video of Tyler Glasnow from above, this is a really good view to see it. So we got the first one was at lower intensity, and the second one was at higher intensity. But again, we can see like here, right, as he kind of works into accelerating the baseball, he's letting it relax and lay back here. So it's not super tense. He's not pushing his arm forward. He's letting it lag behind the rest of his body and using his bigger musculature to whip it forward. It's going to be even more prevalent or easy to see on this clip here when he's at a little bit higher intent. But again, his arm gets flipped up and then it's lagging behind, right? He's putting this whole shoulder complex on stretch as he goes and whips the ball forward. One more example from the side. This is Garrett Richards. Moves very, very efficiently when he throws. And again, we see the same thing where as he begins getting into acceleration of the baseball, we're going to see that arm lag behind his head, lag behind the line of the shoulders, so that he can put this whole anterior musculature on stretch to whip that forward. So there's really two different kind of things that can obstruct you being able to do this. And really what we're going to look at is it a mobility problem? Is it kind of like a tissue quality problem? Is it a structural problem? Or is it an actual muscle tensioning problem? So the first thing that we'll do with our athletes is take them through, or as part of their assessment, we'll take them through basically an overhead reach test. And this is going to help us to see if they have adequate mobility on this front side in the pec, in the lat, to be able to get overhead and get into that good position. So I'll let you guys watch the overhead reach test here.
For the overhead reach, we're going to go with our feet about 2 to 3 inches away from the wall here. We're going to sit with our butt back against the wall. We're going to flatten our lower back so that our lower back is also against the wall, and then put our head against the wall as well, tucking our chin. From there, we're going to go straight arms. So from this position, we have our butt against the wall, lower back against the wall, T-spine against the wall, and then head against the wall as well, with that chin tucked. We're going to straighten out our arms and then take them overhead, trying to touch the wall behind us with our thumbs pointing back behind us. So that we're going to lower back down.
So that test is going to give us a pretty good idea of just really where your overhead mobility is. If you get to this portion here and we see compensations, that's going to tell us that you have restrictions here on the anterior portion of your body that's not allowing you to actually get into that position that we saw earlier. So then we can attack that through different mobility drills and also different strengthening drills once we've kind of attacked your mobility. And actually one of those drills we can see here, so this is what we call lat contractor lax, and it's basically going to be getting into that position, gaining some mobility in that position, and then building strength. So again, I'll let you guys watch this demonstration and explanation.
So for the stretch, all we're going to do, attach the band to something stable, put your arm through it, wrap it around, bring it up overhead, We're going to get in that same wide position, front leg stable, just like if we strut it out like a crow hop or a pitch. Then you're going to simply lean forward from the torso, keeping a stable front leg. As you lean forward, try to feel your lat loosen and feel a stretch there. So looks something like this. We're going to end up doing 5 reps. And then on the last rep, I want you to get here, then contract, push your hand into the band for 5 seconds, and then release.
So again, by getting into those positions and then ending it with that contraction, we're not only going to be building mobility throughout that range, but also some strength so that we're able to keep the shoulder healthy, keep the arm healthy in those newfound ranges of motion. And if we can perform that action and get into that range of motion here, that means that we're, quote unquote, cleared to get into those positions when we go to throw. And if we're not able to achieve them in our throw, then we know it's not a mobility or a restriction issue. So once we have the adequate mobility, this is a progression that we'll use with a med ball before, or to kind of help them understand what it's going to feel like in their throw. So again, I'll let this play and let you guys hear what this med ball progression will look like.
Overhead med ball progression, you're going to start with 2 legs at the same time for the first one. So something like this. Right, so what we're focusing on with this exercise is align ourselves to feel kind of the energy roll from our feet, through our knees, through our hips, through our torso, all the way up into our shoulders when we ultimately release it. So you'll notice the knees bend forward first, getting out over the toes, and then the hips extend, and then the thoracic spine extends right there, and that ultimately is what whips the ball forward. So it's trying to create that roll of energy, right? It's not just an overhead throw, but we're trying to initiate with the lower half first by extending forward with the knees, then the hips, then the thoracic spine, and then whipping the ball overhead. So full speed. First progression would look like this. And then immediately after that, we want you to take that into a 1-foot takeoff. So it's similar to a roll-in when we throw, but you're going to start on your throwing side leg. So for me, that's my right. You're going to try to get that same flow now, throwing from one leg. So you'll notice, again, knee goes over first, extends, hip extends, thoracic spine extends, and then ultimately whipping over a solid or a braced front leg. A braced front hip, that's pulling back behind just like that. So it's going from, again, full progression is you're going to start with the 2 legs, just like that, creating that whip of energy, and then take that into your 1-legged throw immediately after that.
So what this allows us to do, like I mentioned before the video started playing, is just take the mobility that we've built, whether you have it or not, after we've kind of assessed that portion and help you to get where you need to go in terms of actual tissue quality and tissue length on the anterior side of your body here. After we've built that, this is a progression that we can use to help you feel what that should feel like, what it should look like before we actually take it into your throwing motion. So following that, the second kind of, or the second thing that can obstruct you from getting into those good positions that we initially saw from Vetter, from Glasnow, and from Richards is just a simple muscle tension issue. So if you have the range of motion to be able to get overhead, to get into those good positions with the assessment and with the lat contract relax and with the med ball progressions that we saw before, if you're able to do all of that and get into good ranges of motion, but you're still not seeing good arm action in your throw, then it's likely a muscle tensioning issue where you're just not allowing yourself to relax enough to get into that position. Because what will actually happen when we contract is that you're going to reduce the degrees of freedom, and then what that doesn't allow to have happen is it doesn't allow your shoulder or your elbow to kind of separate, your arm to separate from your torso, right? It kind of locks it all up into one unit. So you can see here, this is one of my throws from probably roughly a year ago, and what we can see is that, I'll go ahead and slow it down here. When I get into this position here and start rotating forward, we can see that there's not much separation. There's not much lag between the elbow and between the torso. And I know personally that I have the range of motion to get into those better positions, but we don't see me achieving them here. So that tells us that it's a tensioning issue when we actually throw. So something that I've tried and that has worked pretty well for me in the past is simply a very simple arm shake. So you can see it here, but what I'm trying to do is keep these arms completely loose and just think of them like they're a loose rag, and I'm driving the shake of them with my torso. So these arms are completely loose, and I'm driving my torso and my hips to flop the arms. So what this is going to help you feel is just the arms being loose and floppy, and the torso or your quote unquote core driving what they're doing. And again, you can see the hips rotating as I do this as well. So we're really using that center to drive what's happening at our extremities, which is what we ultimately want to have happen when we throw. And then right after that, we're going to see this throw here. So if we slow it down a little bit, we can see that as I begin accelerating forward, I'm in a much better position here with the arm. So you'll notice that the elbow, again, this video is kind of blurry, but the elbow is at most in line with the shoulders. And if we were to get a little bit slower, if I would have taken this in slow motion, we'd likely see it a little bit behind the shoulders, actually, like we saw in those original clips with Glass Now, with Vetter, and with Garrett Richards. So by using this drill to eliminate some of the tension that I've previously been throwing with, we can now see that helps me to get into better positions when I go through and execute this throw. And what that's going to allow to have happen is we're able to, again, like I mentioned at the start, stretch the musculature on the front side, on the anterior side of our body, to then get into this position here, so that as we're finishing the throw, this front side is contracting and whipping the ball forward, which is going to be much more efficient than if we're just trying to push it forward with our arm. So I'll let it play through one more time. So if you notice that you seem to be having this issue, what I would recommend is, number one, go through and do that overhead assessment. See if you have adequate range of motion to get into the positions that we talked about. If you do, that's great. Then you can go ahead into the med ball progression. You can also see or kind of allow yourself to feel, is it a tension issue? If it is, I would recommend trying these loose arm swings here. If it's a mobility issue, I'd recommend going through and doing the lat, contract, relax that I showed earlier. And by combining these things and kind of giving you a recipe for how to attack this specific part of the arm action, I think you'll find that it's going to help you out quite a bit. I want to take the time to thank you guys for watching this video. If you made it through the whole thing, you're obviously very serious about educating yourself and about getting better as a baseball player. So props to you for that. If you'd like additional information or you would like to know more about what we provide in terms of actual personalized remote training, I can be reached via email at bradydacbaseball@gmail.com. That's bradydacbaseball@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is www.dacbaseball.com, or any of our social media sites. The big ones are going to be Twitter and Instagram, and we're going to be Dak Baseball on both of those.